evening, Terps. Really, good evening, Terps. There we go. So my name is Jeff Williams. I'm the Managing Director and Chief Outreach Officer at your Alumni Association. And on behalf of the Alumni Association and the Robert H. Smith School of Business, I want to welcome you back to the classroom. This time with no homework. Now you know. Yeah. I would have never promised there's no homework, but so we're thrilled to have you to join us for tonight's event. NFTs and Web3, what does it all mean? I don't know yet, but I'm excited to learn. So tonight's event is part of our lifelong learning programs for alumni, where we bring the expertise of Terp faculty, staff, and alumni to share their insights and knowledge with our community. We strive to provide meaningful and relevant engagement opportunities to support you throughout your professional and career and life journey. Tonight would not have been possible without the support of our outstanding partners here at the Smith School of Business. I want to thank Dean Kanama and also Mark Forrest. I don't see Mark. Oh, there it is. For their leadership and collaboration. I also want to thank my colleague Ellie Garrity, Wave, our Director of Alumni Career Programs at the Alumni Association, who helped put together this program tonight. Immediately following the lecture, we hope you'll stay for our networking reception to meet like-minded Terps out in the foyer behind us. And with no further ado, I have the pleasure of introducing our content expert this evening, Terp alum Robert, goes by Bobby Leach. Bobby is a product leader and entrepreneur with over 18 years of experience creating digital products. He spent the first part of his career at a leading management technology consulting firm before focusing full-time on product development through Center Punch LLC, a product development lab that he founded to create data-driven products, including a top 40 mobile app. More recently, Bobby founded Munching Technologies to help contribute to the next evolution of the internet and Web3. He's a 2004 graduate of the Smith School of Business, currently resides in New York City, and less than 24 hours ago got back from South Africa. So I think you maybe we should give him a round of applause for showing up tonight. Welcome back.
Thanks, Jeff. How's everyone doing? Thanks for being here. So we're going to talk about NFTs and Web3 today, but first I want to talk about how I got here today. It actually has to do with this championship team 20 years ago. So over the winter, I started a company creating NFTs. We created them for higher education, and we also created a couple for the NFL. And so we saw this trend where digital collectibles were taking off, and I had this wish that Maryland would come out with a digital collectible to commemorate the 20-year anniversary. So I reached out to the Alumni Association and see if there was interest. And good on them. They said, we're open to that. Let's see what our alumni students say. So they sent out a survey, and here are the results. 41% of people had no clue what an NFT was, and 30% of people had heard of the word NFT but needed more information. And so Ellie and Mark and Christy Lynn, I want to thank you guys for having me. They said, come on down, we'll do a lecture event, some type of discussion, and you can help educate the world on NFTs. So I haven't been in this building in 18 years, and everyone knows that to do a good presentation, you have to know your audience. And so I really wanted to visualize what it would be like to be here and who I would be standing in front of. So my plan was to get here early today, go out on the mall and ask real people from Maryland what they thought about NFTs. And I tried to do that, but I ran out of time. And so I thought the next best thing would be to use AI to paint a picture. Has everyone heard of DALL-E by a show of hands? Okay, cool. So I went to DALL-E and I typed in painting a picture of a classroom of the University of Maryland students and alumni learning about blockchain, NFTs, and Web3, and then minting an NFT successfully in the style of a Disney character. This stuff is actually really impressive. It's usually really accurate. And here's what we got. So let's see, from right to left, picture 4, picture 3. These people look really busy. Picture 2, I can't tell if this is the "that was easy" face or if that is what the hell are you talking about.
We're working on that.
Let me see if I can. There we go. And she's deep in concentration. And then picture 1, everyone's left the lecture hall. So yeah, this is what I envision today would be like. So let's just see what happens. So the truth is, I've given a few of these talks before, and there's typically a small group of people on the right who are just angry about NFTs. There's people who are a small group of people on the left who breathe this stuff. They typically live on Twitter. All of their profiles are NFTs. And then there's most people who are kind of in the middle. And so my objective today is really 3 things. 1, I want to teach you the basics. 2, I want to show you how we got to where we are today. And 3, I want to persuade you about the possibilities of this technology and how they're going to use it in the future. A little bit about me. Jeff already covered this. I think the big thing here that wasn't covered was I got crypto billed last summer when a friend of mine bought me a horse. So that's my horse there. That led me down a rabbit hole, and I co-founded this company, Minted. There's 3 of us who founded it. I kind of lead up the product side of things. John is our CTO. Like every good CTO, he lives in a cabin in upstate New York, and he's on the call today, so he's going to handle some of the Q&A. And then Anela, she handles our business development. So over the winter, we were really fascinated with this idea of like digital ownership. What would it mean to own a certificate of authenticity for your watch? Or what would it mean to own an NFT diploma, right? I don't know if you knew this, but if you want your diploma from Maryland after you graduate, you have to pay for it after you pay for your education, right? And so with this idea, we were curious how blockchain was intersecting with higher education. We sent 20 cold emails. We got 5 projects within 2 weeks, and that's how we started the company. We started off doing this agency type of work, like I mentioned, the NFL, but we're primarily building the product. The product's called Minted. I may show a demo of that later. Here's a little bit of an example of what we do. So we create these NFTs to help grow and engage communities. They're interactive. You can see some of them have been used for law school competition, orientations to school, even an avatar in the middle here. So this is a sample of what we've done. Okay, cool. The agenda for today. First, we're going to talk about the web 1, 2, 3s, the basic definition, so you know what that means. Then we're going to talk about the ABCs of NFTs, a little bit more of your tech talk. Then we're going to talk about our history lesson. We're going to show how we got to where we are, and then trends, then open Q&A. Okay, so diving straight in. Web 1, you guys, some of you lived through this, 1989 to 2004. This is the read-only web, right? Static websites. Google didn't exist until 1998. Before that, we just surfed the web, just browse topic to topic. Some basic technology that enabled this. Obviously, Netscape was one of the first browsers, HTML. Web 2 is known as the read-write web, right? Interactive web pages, platforms start to emerge. Social media, wikis, data collection, right? You're creating accounts on all these websites on the web, and of course, the web now is driven by advertisements. And now we're at Web 3, which really emerged in 2020. And it's really defined by blockchain, which is a decentralized database, decentralized ledger. And the data on that ledger is actually owned by you. It's not owned by any of the big technologies. The technologies that enable this are blockchain and cryptography. So fundamentally, Web3 is really just a marketing term. It's branding. It could change in a couple of years. If you hear people talking about Web3, they could be talking about any of these things here. From the bottom up, you know, if you go over to the CS department, they're probably going to be thinking about it in terms of the technology, blockchain, and smart contracts, and decentralized apps. But they could also be referring to Web3 when they're talking about cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency, Bitcoin was the first one, 2009. I think I heard about Bitcoin in 2012, and I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. And do I think today that we need a cryptocurrency in America? I don't think we need it, but I do believe in it. And what helped me is taking a world view. So, you know, you've read articles about people leaving Russia. They can only take $6,000 out of their bank account. We work with a company that they believe their mission is to create a stable currency. They believe it's a human right. They do a lot of their work in Venezuela. And 3 years ago in Venezuela, the currency was changing 20% on a daily basis. People will get paid, or most people work for the government. They would get paid in bolivars, immediately try to get it into USD. But the problem is the banking systems there don't connect with our banking system. And so people were buying whiskey and grains, right? There's 200 countries in the world, 25 to 30 of them hyperinflation. So when you take a world view, I think cryptocurrency makes a really good case for that. Today we're going to drill into NFTs. DeFi is also another category of Web3. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. So centralized finance is the current banking system that we have, the current global banking system. I actually wired money today. If you want to wire money from Bank of America to Capital One, and they're across the street from each other, it takes a day if you get that in by 5 p.m. If you miss it, it takes 2 days, let alone trying to wire money internationally, that's going to take 2 to 3 days, right? It's 2022, we have self-driving cars, we're putting people, we're sending people to Mars, and it still takes 2 to 3 days to send money across banks. So DeFi's objective is to remove that third-party intermediary using these underlying technologies. And then DAOs, we'll touch on that a little bit later, but any of these things here, any of these concepts would be Web3 concepts. Okay. So now the ABCs. So the first letter we're going to learn is B is for blockchain. So blockchain is a distributed ledger that's shared amongst computers to record transactions. So let's look at an example. I think the best mental model is thinking about a spreadsheet. It's a good enough analogy when it comes to thinking about a ledger or a database or a blockchain. But there's some key differences. Databases have centralized control. Blockchains don't. You may hear people refer to blockchain as a trustless network. Trustless doesn't mean there's no trust in the system. It means that a third party is not required to have the system function with trust. So how does blockchain work? This is how it works. I'm just going to give you a quick example. If I wanted to send Ryan here 1 Bitcoin, I would open up my wallet, my crypto wallet. I would put in his address. That would get bundled up as a block and broadcast to all 10,000 computers in that network. All 10,000 would agree that I have that currency and I send it to him. And once they all agree, that block gets added to the chain. So here's the cool thing about it though. When it gets added to the chain, a computer has to solve a cryptographic puzzle. But the answer to that block is dependent on the block before it. And the answer to that block is dependent on the block before it. So the reason blockchains are so secure is that for a bad actor to go in after the fact and say, actually, Bobby, you sent 100 Bitcoin to Ryan, they would essentially have to change every block on the chain. So since 2009, blockchain has never been compromised. The foundational blockchain itself. That's why it's so secure. Some popular ones, Bitcoin 2009, Ethereum 2015. Okay, moving on, NFTs. Non-fungible just means unique. If you hear someone say that you have a non-fungible token, just translate that in your head to they have a unique token. And this exists right now, right? Fungible things would be dollar bills. If I give Boris here $1 and he gives me $1, we both still have $1. And then if I give him 4 quarters and he gives me $1 back, we both have $1. That's fungible. And then non-fungible already exists in the real world, right? If I have a painting of the Mona Lisa and you have a painting of a Picasso, even if they're the same value, they're not the same asset, right? Same thing with real estate. 2 houses of the same value are not the same house, they're unique, right? So we already have non-fungible things in this world. NFTs just create that in the digital world. And here's how you do it. So if you're going to just take one mental image from this lecture, try to capture this one in your brain. There's 3 things that make up an NFT. There's the media. So in this case, it's a picture. But it doesn't have to be a picture. It could be a movie, it could be a PDF document. And then that media, that digital media, is stamped with a token. That's that T in NFT. So in this example, the token, your actual token is 6723. That's the token in this app. And then lastly, that token is associated with this contract. We'll talk about that in a second, but the big thing to take away here is these 3 things make this file, this digital asset, unique. There can never, ever be a 6723 token on this contract ever again, right? So that's what creates digital scarcity. That's what creates provenance. That's what makes this unique. That's what makes, if I right click and save as, it doesn't take away the fact that this is actually unique, right? So it allows for unique digital objects. Does anyone know whose NFT this is? Anyone see this?
Gorillas.
It's a board ape. It's a board ape. It's a very popular collection. That's Snoop Dogg's NFT. Okay, so I mentioned one thing. In this collection, there's 10,000 of these NFTs. So how does that happen? That happens because of a smart contract. So a smart contract is just a computer program that's stored on the blockchain that governs the rules for how that NFT functions. So in this example, I mentioned that there's only 10,000 NFTs. That computer program gets put on that ledger. And once it's on that ledger, it cannot be changed. And so you have people who have created billion-dollar NFT projects. And even the owners, even the founders of that project, they can't just give their cousin an extra NFT. They can't just give their friend another NFT, right? Everything is already on the blockchain, already immutable. And it's transparent, publicly viewable. You just go to the blockchain, look at it, it's there for everyone to see. And so putting it together, now you have a digital object that's stamped with this signature, which makes it unique. You own it because it's attached to your wallet, which we'll talk about in a moment. Because blockchain itself is a chain of transactions without provenance. And then the contract itself could have rules that give it scarcity. Okay, so wallets, I'll just say a brief thing on this. A crypto wallet is not the same as like your Apple wallet or your Google wallet. And I think the big takeaway is this. In Web 2, you create a login and a password. I have like an app that manages how many logins I have. I have over I have over 500 accounts, right? In Web3, since there's no central authority to manage your username and login, you don't have a username and login. Everything's about your wallet. So to interact with an NFT, you need a wallet. We can handle maybe some more of the detailed questions in the Q&A, but for now, just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, finishing out the alphabet, M. So when you create an NFT, you mint an NFT. So if you ever read something about that or hear that in the news, that's what that means. Airdropping an NFT. If I want to send you one, I would be airdropping it to you. Okay. A similar concept if you're going to airdrop someone a picture on your iPhone, but a different implementation. And then lastly, I keep saying this blockchain, you just go to the blockchain. So Etherscan is the Google, if you will, of Ethereum, and BTC Scan is the Google of Bitcoin, right? So they're out there, they're not that user friendly, but they are publicly available, and you can see every single block that gets added to the chain. Okay, moving along, here's the history lesson. So how did we get here? So Bitcoin started in 2009. In 2017, there are really 4 projects. For those of you who heard the news of like 2021, the big run up of NFTs, crazy valuations. Here's how we got here. So in 2017, the company Larva Labs created a program that generated 10,000 images based on rarity. So everyone was unique, and some of them were more rare than the others. So that one in the middle that looks like an alien, that's like one of the most rare. Okay, they created 10,000 of these, and they were free to mint. They're just free. They sat there for like a month, right? In 2017, it wasn't that popular. Today, they're worth about $85,000. Anyone know this crypto pump on the right? Okay, that's Jay-Z's crypto pump. Okay, at the same time, company dApps took a similar concept. They took this technology and they said, well, let's create a game out of it. So they created a game where you could breed cats. There were 100 founding cats, right? Some of them had better breeding qualities than the others. And you can breed them together and you can create a new kitten. And this is called Crypto Kitties. And you can buy these for $8. So the story I love to tell about this one is John, right? My CTO. He's been in crypto since 2017, and he was in consulting back then. He got his team together and he said, "Hey guys, this technology is really cool. I think we should mint a crypto pump, or we should mint a crypto kitty." And they minted crypto kitties. And so those are worth $8 today, not $85,000. Okay, moving along, 2019, Dapper Labs gets redemption. They partner with the NBA. It's a $600 million deal. And they create Top Shots, which is basically digital trading cards. So this is what it looks like. This is the top 10 most expensive or most valuable NFT Top Shots. So the LeBron James Cosmic Dunk. So this is worth, this sold for $200,000. Now I know that might sound crazy, but I would just encourage you to think about how the paper baseball card to the right is I think up until this year, was the most expensive baseball card ever sold. Honus Wagner's T206. Okay. All right, so now 2021. Now the artist takes center stage. So there's this artist, People. He's a popular artist in that industry. He's done a couple of Super Bowl commercials. I think he did a Justin Bieber concert. His art called 5,000 days. He created a piece of digital art every day for 5,000 days. It's like 13 years. Created it on his wedding day. It sold at Christie's for $69 million. Okay? But this is why it became so popular. Because if you remember that smart contract that has all those rules, there was a royalty in the contract. So when that sold for $69 million, that artist, Mike Winkleman, got 10%. But it gets even better because in perpetuity, if it sells again on a secondary market and again and again and again, he gets 10% every single time it sells. And this is why artists started taking the center stage, because before this, artists were getting screwed over. They've always been the underdog, right? There's a really good documentary. It's an NPR. There's also a YouTube of it. So apparently, any art collectors in the room? You're one, okay. That's Dominic. He actually created one of the NFTs that you're going to get a chance to claim today. So I'm not an art collector, but apparently before 1970, people only collected the art of dead people. And then in 1973, this trend emerged to collect living artists like Andy Warhol. And the people who pioneered this were Robert and Ethel Skoll. And they auctioned off this painting by Robert Rauschenberg for $85,000. Rauschenberg attended the auction and got into a physical fight with Robert Skoll because he had originally sold that work for $900. And so because artists have always been the underdog, this Beeple sale really took things off. There's all these other art projects that just took off. And that led us to probably arguably the most famous collection. It's called the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And it started in April 2021. It was $236 for the minute. And today, each one, there's 10,000 of them, each one is worth $82,000. And the reason this became so popular is for many reasons, but mostly because storytelling became the center stage here. So you can see it's this pixelated, 500 by 500 pixel ape, but the story behind it is there's a bunch of bored apes hanging out in the swamps of Florida, and they had nothing to do. And people went crazy for this idea. And so, I'm going to play out a little bit. All right, so why is this important? Well, two things happened. A lot of social signaling, right? All these celebrities started buying these NFTs, right? You got Paris Hilton, Jimmy Fallon, Kevin Hart, Chris Rock. I mean, it just became a social signaling, which, maybe not a great thing, but it is what it is. It created popularity. But the goal of the founders of this project is to actually create a metaverse with gaming and to provide utility. It's not just about the art, right? If you own a Bored Ape Yacht Club, you go to an in real life event called Ape Fest. If you own that NFT, there's an online portal that you get to go to. And then one other thing was very unique about them. They gave full IP rights to the owners of the NFTs. And so this is Eminem and Snoop Dogg newest music video. And so those are their, you can see their apes are actually in their music, right? Snoop Dogg's coming out with a whole line of cannabis products. He's not going to put his name on it. He's going to put Dr. Bombay, which is what he named his ape. He's putting that on on those products, right? And so he has full IP over that. Okay. So those are really the 4 to 5 hallmark collections from 2017 that brought us up to 2022. This big run up in popularity. So now let's talk about trends and where things are headed. So the entire market is projected to be a $10 trillion market. And I wanted to look at a few use cases just to explore some possibilities, see some trends. So we've talked a little bit about art, but there's 2 really cool use cases that I wanted to point out. There's a marketplace where every NFT you buy, the money goes directly to charity. And it's all codified in that smart contract. So the minute you purchase that art, automatically goes to charity, right? In perpetuity. If it gets sold in the secondary market, it goes to them too. On the right-hand side, there's a company called Particle. So elite art, like a Banksy, right? Art that's $100 million, it's not accessible to the average person. So this company is actually, this is what we would call like tokenizing a physical asset. They actually buy the art, they take a picture of it, create 1,000 pixels, and then sell those 1,000 pixels to the average person. So you can own a piece of it. And as this gets leased to a museum in France or a museum in London, as it goes up in value, your ownership of this painting goes up in value. When normally this would be accessible to the average person. Those are two cool examples of art. At the top here, it's hard to see from the slide, but MoMA just sold $70 million worth of art from their museum, and the theory is they're getting rid of that art to make way for a more digital experience for NFTs. Okay, collectibles. So it's not just about art. We talked about sport cards with like Top Shots. So if you go to a Dallas Mavericks game, every time you walk in, you can scan the QR code, collect an NFT. If you want to do MLB digital baseball cards on MLB, you go to Candyland. The NFL has one autograph. There's one, So Rare is doing football in Europe. They actually have a really cool one. You actually buy these digital sport cards and you assemble them to your fantasy team, and then you actually can get compensated if your fantasy team wins. And then lastly, there's NIL and the NCAA. By show of hands, who's familiar with NIL? Yeah, so now college athletes can monetize themselves. How cool would it be if every freshman got a pack of 20 digital NFTs to give to their friends and family, right? Maybe one of them becomes the next Tom Brady. Maybe it's worth something. If it's not, it's still a cool collectible. It reminds me, my sister went to University of Maryland. She's actually here today. And she was here during the era of Joe Smith, an X-ray hip. Joe Smith played in the league for 17 years. She had a gym class with him and got an autograph on a notebook paper for me. Right? And that was super meaningful for me at the time. I've lost it, I don't know where it is now, but I would much rather have a digital collectible of that athlete. Okay, memberships, moving on. Memberships is another use case. So I'm actually a member of LinkStyle. You buy their token. So the whole purpose of this membership is they're buying a golf course. I have a token. I get to vote on what course that they get to buy. So I mentioned DAOs earlier. You can kind of think of these as like co-ops at scale. Everyone has a voting right if you have a token. The one on the right is my BFF. It's 100 female founders. They're dedicated to educating women and non-binaries on Web3 3 times a week. They do training sessions. They do one-on-one Zoom calls with Mila Kunis. So they kind of give you access from this fan to token holder connection. The cool thing about it is, unlike most memberships where you just pay a membership fee every month, with NFTs, you don't pay a membership fee, or you buy the token, and then when you're done, you sell the token on a secondary market. And if the membership became more valuable, you could make money, and if it became less valuable, you might lose money. But it's your membership, you own it, and you can do what you want with it. Okay, moving on, media. By show of hands, anyone know who Gary Vee is? So Gary Vee is a lot of things, but he is on a path to try to create the next Disney, right? He created 55 characters called V Friends. He's getting them on backpacks, he's getting them on stuffed animals, and he hasn't promised it, but given the technology, he can, if you're watching a V Friends cartoon and you own that V Friends, he could actually give you a benefit because you own that NFT. The big takeaway here is that a lot of people in the crypto space think that the next big media company is not going to come from Disney. It's going to come from the ground up, either from the influencer market, right? Logan Paul, Nelk Boys, they're doing NFTs, or it's going to come with some sort of NFT concept. It's going to come from the bottom up. Okay, music. Music, I think it's going to be probably the next big thing. I think it's really cool. So Royal.io, they sell NFTs for music rights. So usually the record company owns the rights, right? And it's a relationship between the artist and the record company, and you're just a listener. And so their mission is to make the relationship between the fan and the musician, right? Cut out the music company. And so you buy the NFT, you own the IP to that song. And so they're a new company, but as of July, they've already dispersed $36,000 for a song. So people who own this NFT get a royalty for owning it. If that song gets into a game or if it gets into a commercial, they'll get directly compensated. Snoop Dogg bought Death Row Records. He took it offline. He's going to relaunch it as an NFT label. Moving on, Sound.xyz. So Sound.xyz, they're on a mission to, they're more about music collectibles, right? There's something to be said about, in 2003, I was in East Village and I saw Lady Gaga perform. And I bought her NFT there, right? I was there first. I mean, think about it. If you've gone to a concert, oftentimes you turn to the person to your right and you ask them, well, how many shows have you been to? Right? There's some type of like swag about kind of being there first. And so Sound.xyz is trying to solve that and fix that, because in the music industry, unless you can stream really, really well, like hundreds of millions of streams, it's really hard to make a living. But with NFTs, you can find like your 1,000 true fans and they buy an NFT of your music, there's more options there. And then lastly, Formless. This is a company that is just trying to change up how people get paid. Usually the artist is the person that gets paid last. If you publish music to their platform, the minute it gets streamed, the artist gets paid first. And it happens in near real time. Okay, gaming. I'm not gonna touch this one that long. That's my horse again. So that's a game where I get to race my horse. But for you gamers, kind of just conceptualize this. We can talk about it more in the discussion. But Epic made $50 million in Fortnite skins. Those skins are not portable. You just buy them in the game and then they're in the game. So there's a lot of people who think that gaming will be a huge opportunity for NFTs where they'd be portable from game to game, right? Because they exist on blockchain, you buy them, you take them with you to other games. Okay, retail. So retail, apparently luxury brands burn $600 million in product every year. They can't just leave it out there, right? It's a luxury product. And so there are companies now trying to tokenize the retail business where you would buy the NFT And it would be redeemable for the physical asset. Once that physical asset gets released. And in the meantime, you can sell it on the secondary market if you don't want it anymore. Or if it goes up in value, you can sell it on the secondary market and turn a profit. Okay. And that lastly, that brings us to education. So education, it introduces a new concept called soul-bound token. So everything up until this point, we're talking about things that may be worth money, but there's this concept of what they call a soul-bound token. A weird concept. It just means that the token is not meant to be bought or sold. It's non-transferable. So here's a famous quote by Vitalik. He's the guy who started Ethereum. And he said, "Can you imagine a world where everyone has a soul-bound token for all your affiliations and all of your memberships and all of your credentials, right? After 4 years of Maryland, you walk out with a wallet, it's got all your credentials, right? You get your first job, you work there for 5 years, you walk away with all your associations, your affiliations, and your accomplishments. That's become the big idea around education. The current situation, in a superficial sense, I mean, your diploma ends up in a box or in a hallway. There are digital diplomas today, but again, they're typically behind paywalls. And then there's the more higher stakes scenario with education. So Keenan Ramsey is an AI generated person. She didn't go to NYU. But everything looks like she did. Everything on LinkedIn, there's no verification. You can go up there and say whatever you want about where you went to school. Right? 15 million fake LinkedIn profiles were taken down in the first 6 months of 2021. And if anyone in this room has ever done hiring, it's a huge, huge waste of time. I've done it myself. I've seen hundreds of fake resumes when I've done hiring. Hundreds. And it's wasted a lot of time. There's this concept called the sheepskin effect. It's a concept by this guy, Scott Myers, who I really like. He's a big thought leader in the space. If you go to 7 out of 8 semesters in college, that doesn't equate to 7/8 pay once you get a job, right? You're really paying for that sheepskin, you're paying for that degree. But the truth is, the skills economy is coming. You typically have to reskill every 2 to 3 years. So why not give people micro credentials, right? You're a Java developer, you're a product manager. And if they're verifiable, makes the recruiting process much more efficient.
No, I'm sorry. I said Steve's.
Might have been a catch. Okay, so here's kind of what is possible in the education space. These NFTs will be providing proof of learning, proof of membership, proof of affiliation. It could be a credential. And there's other possibilities. So I'll leave you with this, right? Think not every scenario is going to resonate. They don't all resonate with me, but think about how they do intersect with what you do. So I like to travel. I buy plane tickets, and I've lost plane tickets because the airline hasn't refunded me. Why isn't there a secondary market where I can just sell my plane ticket, right? If the security part can be solved, I should be able to sell my ticket. So travelx.io, they're trying to solve that problem. They're trying to create a protocol where you buy the ticket, you own it, it's yours. So NFT technology enables that. It wasn't possible before. I'll jump down to the bottom one, so ticketing, right? Whoever bought a ticket on StubHub knows that you're paying them $15 for handling that transaction, because you need that third-party intermediary. But you wouldn't necessarily need that if they were NFTs. And then lastly, real estate. I mean, I've bought homes. Every time you buy a home, there's closing costs. Every time there's a title search. Every time the thing's $200, right? Why is it your title and the history of your title on chain? You can just see it right there, and it can remove costs, and it can remove time to close. So think about the things that are affect data. And where do we go from here? So in closing, we're still early. In terms of the adoption curve, I would say the general consensus is that we're right about here, still in the early adopter phase. There's going to be use cases that expand outside this whole art and collectibles. And it's important to know the basics. Try it out. That's what I would encourage you. There's a really good book, Innovator's Dilemma. Has anyone read it? It's a fantastic book. And it talks about how every big innovation is dismissed as a tool, right? When they were putting cameras and phones, I don't think we were thinking about Face ID, and we certainly weren't thinking about TikTok dance videos. So it's an iterative process. It looks like a toy, and over time, the use cases emerge. Okay. Thank you, guys. I think we can move to clean up. You got a question in front?
If you have a question, you can use the mics on the left side over here.
There are a lot of aspects, obviously, that you touched on. Some of them I have worries, others. But one thing is I'm not clear on this. So these essentially are just digital files. So I understand that they have the tokens, so you can prove ownership, but can they be copied, or are they encrypted, or can anyone read them? Could anyone copy them?
So good question. The media itself, right? That image that can be copied.
Yeah.
But that image is just one component to that NFT.
Yes.
Right? The NFT is the image stamped with that token. That cannot be replicated. That cannot be tampered with.
Yes, I understand.
That's the part that's immutable.
I mean, you could, if you copy the image, like, what are they? They're just a standard, like an image format file.
Yeah.
If you copy that, it wouldn't include the token, or would it include the token on the image?
Yeah. Okay, I get the question. So, no, you cannot copy that token. If you took a screenshot or you copied that image, it wouldn't come along with the token.
Oh, but the image would.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand how this could then be applied to fine art. I mean, it's not truly unique in that sense. If someone wants to have a very expensive work of art, you sell a painting, and it's very difficult to forge all of it. But it seems to be super easy to just make copies. Essentially, it could be stolen easily. And that other people could then possess this use, but so it's not really unique.
So it's true someone could take that image and create another NFT that looked nearly identical.
Yeah.
Right, and physically it would be identical, but one attribute is that provenance that we talked about. So
That's true.
since there's a time series, every block is a snapshot in time. In fact, this actually exists now. If you go to a marketplace, OpenSea, the very popular marketplace. If you type in Board Ape Yacht Club, right, those NFTs are worth $85,000, you will see dozens of collections that are fake. Right? They're trying to spoof it, right? Just like you're trying to spoof a website. They look exactly like the original NFT, but the market doesn't buy those. Well, some people do, and they get scammed.
Yeah.
But the general consensus is the market doesn't buy those because those are copycats.
Got it. Well, yeah, but with all due respect, those were not really fine art. I mean, but so it's really the uniqueness token and the imprint.
That's exactly.
That makes it neat, but with really fine art, like if I wanted to have a copy of the Mona, if I want to have the Mona Lisa inked on my wall, I would have to steal it from the Louvre, or I could pay someone to make it very, very accurate mistake. But but it would be very easy. It's a really beautiful, wonderful piece of digital fine art. I could have that hang on my wall if I had some gigantic like, micro LED display.
Yeah.
So just have the exact same image.
Yeah, so I mean, we're showing these NFTs, right, as digital images, people typically display them in like really remarkable digital frames, right? Look quite nice.
Exactly, so what I'm saying is there could be multiple stolen copies. These could be displayed.
Hi there, thank you. That was a great overview. It does seem like it's very wild west right now in the early adoption stage, because I know you said it's safe, but it's like, it seems like every media that you read about or hear about somebody got their crypto stolen or things were stolen. But for people who are starting out like me, I had this bright idea at the beginning of the year to make an NFT for my daughter's 21st birthday. I'm like, this is great, we'll move forward, make a memento of it. And so I'm looking at YouTube videos, trying to figure it out, but it seemed like it was so expensive. I went to OpenSea, I got the picture and everything, then I had to go buy Ethereum, and then I actually had to mint it. So I paid paid the $100 fee for my wallet or whatever, and then when I went to mint it, it was going to be $400 just for a picture. So how do people get started, basically, without investing thousands of dollars on a picture for their dog?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have an answer, but maybe John, do you want to take that on? How do you get started in a low cost way?
I apologize, Bobby. I was replying to a few questions in the chat. Can you repeat the question?
So the question was, and what's your name again?
Yvette.
So Yvette wanted to create an NFT, and with all the fees, the gas fees, it's actually going to be several $100 on an OpenSea marketplace. So she was asking if there's a lower cost option to kind of get started in creating these kind of digital assets online.
Yeah, I mean, for one, I think a lot of the challenges that we've seen with initial NFTs is the blockchain that they use is Ethereum, and Ethereum's gas fees tend to be quite high, anywhere from a few dollars to even $100. And then what also happens is if a lot of people are using the blockchain at the same time, say, for example, a lot of people are trying to mint the same NFT right when it drops and right when it's available to the public, they have what's called like a gas war, which raises the cost of the gas even higher. But what we're seeing is there's different blockchains that are coming out that work very well with Ethereum. They're called layer 2s that sit essentially on top of Ethereum, something called like Polygon. And what they do is they take the gas fees down to fractions of pennies. So, and that's certainly the trend that we're seeing. And I think, for one, that's going to certainly reduce the cost of NFTs. But then just in general, I think the initial phase of NFTs was around market value. But I think what we're seeing is the move towards value associated with like how they relate to an individual or the individual's own value for the NFT versus the market value. And because of that, I think we're seeing a trend towards a lot lower cost NFTs.
How would you know which of those polygons to use, or which of those?
Yeah.
It's really just a concern for, which you can get in trouble by doing things when you don't know what you're doing.
Sure.
And, am I just giving my money to any old blockchain? How do you know which ones to trust, which ones not to trust?
Yeah, I would say this is one of the bigger challenges in this space. And you call it the wild west. It is a little bit of the wild west. And so it takes a lot of diligence, it takes a lot of research, and that's why the adoption curve is so delayed right now. It's about just getting incrementally, more knowledgeable about it. John and I can help you afterwards. The NFTs that you're gonna claim today, they were minted on Polygon for a couple cents.
Yeah, and just one last point on that. I think it's a really good question. The way and Bobby's last slide sort of touched on this. Where we are in the adoption curve is it's very similar to like the internet 1993, where if anyone was around for that, I remember the early stages of the internet. It was seen the same way. You know, wild, wild west. You couldn't put your credit card in because that was seen as very unsafe. And then with adoption and better technology and smarter people looking at it and better business models, a lot of those problems sort of went away. So, this phase of blockchain, I certainly hear your pain. I've been through those challenges as well. And I think just as we move forward with better adoption and better education, it's just going to get better.
All right. All right, so I'm gonna ask you some advice. I'm a meta advertiser, so I advertise on Facebook and Instagram. I also use Jasper AI to blog posts. Is there any kind of combination I can do with that pretty easily to turn that into revenue? Taking the AI photos, minting them or something, and then putting them on Meta's platforms with all advertising? Is there any kind of use?
Are you asking if there's anything that exists? Or
Yeah, are people using Meta platforms to advertise, paid advertising on Facebook, Instagram, possibly WhatsApp coming up? Obviously, but to use this kind of technology to mass put it out, and what if it's like a PDF that is like a guide to NTFs, right? Could you sell that PDF on the blockchain through Meta?
So the last part of that question, 100%. So you can sell a PDF. The most popular marketplace is called OpenSea. There's a category for buying photography, right? There's a category for documents. There's a PDF. So 100% you can sell that PDF. Whether it makes sense for that use case and someone would buy it. I'm not an advertising guy, so I can't speak to that. But
well, I mean, I guess what I'm asking is that forget about the advertising part, but if you have the PDF, could you blockchain it and then put it on, like, let's say you give an email, right? And then you send them the email and they're like, all right, download this for, $5.99. It's a guide to NFTs. They would then give their email to get the created content in that PDF. Would you have ownership of that PDF? Like, could you blockchain that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last question.
Maybe two. I'll keep mine short.
Okay.
Okay, I have an easy question. So incremental learning. So the Born Panda, they have Snoop Dogg has his digital card, and then there's all that video that goes on behind that. How do people see that? Because otherwise I just see a card, to be honest. And two, how do you get paid? I assume it's in the contract, and somehow the blockchain keeps track of that and it deposits it in your wallet. So easy question.
So the second part of that, you nailed it. The contract would immediately disperse the funds to that token. And then the first half, I mean, it's an evolution of the art itself. So when the metaverse comes out for that project, it's going to look beautiful. It's going to look immersive, right? You're just going to log in with your pixelated NFT. But once you authenticate it, they're going to give you that 3D beautiful version of it. You're going to be in the metaverse, hanging out in that swamp, doing whatever they do, as that like higher resolution character, right? So the fidelity of that character could have multiple forms, but they're still going to be the underlying character.
I stole the question. Can you please ask?
Well, we have a couple more pieces to go to, so we're gonna close out. You still have time. We want to give you time to reset, as like I like to say, in reception. So we're gonna close out with the last two speakers, and you can still talk to Bobby afterwards. So you can still have, he's not going anywhere, he's not running. So we're gonna have Professor Ted Janana come up and he'll talk about what Smith is already doing in this space, and we'll go from there.
So you thought you could come here and not see a professor? And what my job is to give them a quiz?
No.
Okay, so Bobby, thank you so much. This was so fascinating. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to College Park from New York via Southampton. That's like awesome. This was great. I know you all have such great questions. I also stay around, so if you want some more technical stuff, I can tell you. Bobby nailed it. The trouble we have and the problem that we are trying to solve, working with various people, is we need to get everyone educated and to improve the ease of use. So what hurt us in the internet? You wanted the internet to be all about democracy and decentralization and power to the people, and then we gave away power to Zuckerberg, right? And partly that happened is because as we were architecting everything, things became centralized. And today also we see that happening. So the way to avoid that is to get everyone educated and improve the use of things. So anyway, at the Smith School, I'm going to say so much more, but when I start, I'm a professor. So at the Smith School, we have an open enrollment course called the Blockchain Business Imperative. I teach it. And the Blockchain Business Imperative actually talks about how you can use blockchain within businesses. And then if you want to actually implement something, we have something called a Blockchain Business Accelerator, where we will work with you to do your uses. Now, if you are all fascinated and you want to do be like Bobby and do like a startup and all of that, and you want to just get started, get some help, get some mentoring, we have something called a Blockchain Business Incubator, where you can come, we do some mentoring, we won't charge you any money. We just want you to get started with it. And so if you want, just ask for more information and we'll get you those. And I'm so glad you all still come to school. Because I'm not sure you all came when you were in school. Have a good night. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you guys again. If you're going to got into that XYZ. The lecture notes are gotinto.fun/Smith NFT. Two different URLs. And now moving on to the NFT drop. So we got 3 NFTs today.
Thank you.
What is the .xyz?
So the .xyz are the domains that get the last word. That's the slogan, right? So
It's just a placeholder.
no, it's been around for 10 years, but it's kind of a lot of the crypto blockchain companies have kind of used that domain for their businesses. So if you see a .xyz domain, not a spam, it's probably a blockchain-based company. Okay, we got 3 NFTs today. So the first NFT, McKelvin in watercolor. This is illustrated by Chloe Rock, class of 2015. It's McKelvin Hall. She drew that. The second one is Van Munching in Fall by Dominic. Dominic's here today, class of 2011. Check out his website, his Instagram. He's got a lot of really, really nice art. So you have the option to claim this. You can claim all 3. And yeah, you can claim the Dolly one if you want. And in fact, this could kind of be our customer survey. If you are still confused, claim this one. If you're not confused, claim the other 2. Okay, so all customized, all custom art. No crypto is required to claim these. It does require an email, but I want to be clear. The email is only so you don't have to remember your wallet. A wallet is actually a 40-character number. And so we use an email verification through a trusted party that will allow you to claim the NFT without any crypto. Your email does not go on blockchain. We don't sell your data. We're not going to email you, but that is part of the process. And then lastly, the fact that you claim the token is proof of attendance. So there's going to be a 24-hour claim period. After that, we're going to pause the contract. The contract's got a pause function, so you won't be able to claim. And for the 30 people online, the 50 people here, if Dominic becomes starts doing crazy art, then you might have his first NFT. You will have his first NFT, right? Second. That's the progress. Okay, so are you ready for the 5 simple steps? 5 simple steps. You can scan this code, or you can go to rhsmith.gotminted.app. Okay.
And for those who are in person, they are on signs outside during the reception, so we'll have that outside too.
Yeah. Okay, step 2, connect your wallet. So click on that upper left-hand menu, that little hamburger menu, and you're gonna get a connect wallet button. If you don't have a wallet, it creates a wallet for you. You don't have to have one, it creates one for you the very first time you do this. Okay, it's gonna prompt you. This is actually the most important step. Enter the UMD Web3 under your access code. Step 4, it's going to send you an email to make sure you are who you are. Just click on that email, it's going to look like that.
What was the code again?
UMD Web3. Non-case sensitive. Just UMD Web3. Yeah, for those in person, we have QR codes and instructions outside, so there's really people online, so I'll go ahead and move it along. After you authenticate, you're gonna end up in the Smith School NFTverse. Those are the 3 NFTs. You click on each of them, hit the claim button, they'll go into your wallet. Just go back to the Explore page. You can claim the other ones. If you need any help in the app, there's a chat bot.
Can you return to the previous screen?
Sure. And that chat bot is you'll be chatting with John, he'll help you out. Got it? Genuine excitement.
How do I not lose this? How do I know, like, in 5 years, how do I come back to this and sell it for $500,000? I think yours, so can't
Yeah, we put it well here.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how do I, like,
Yeah, so the simple answer is you need to make sure you remember the keys to your wallet. I can tell you a bit more about that afterwards, but yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. That was it. Thank you. Yeah, if you have any problems, you might hit a network issue. You can always try again if you have any issues. The chat bot on the bottom right will get you there.
24 hours starting when?
Yeah, 24 hours, we'll cut it off.
At 24 hours right now.
Yeah, I'm right now. You tomorrow.
All right, thank you again, thank you, everybody. So the reception is right outside, feel free to grab some food and talk with Professor Non and Bobby outside, any questions you have. And then thank you all for being here. It's been a fun day. For those online, it's not been long at all. So. No. I'm not.
Yeah, I got you. So, you're gonna-
There's so much. Yes, I did. And, maybe Right, you know, and I don't like it. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll make it more. Jennifer. Yeah. I'll see that. Even funny, like, what we break. You know, so. It's wow. And she did share. So, That's like right.